You are hearing or seeing something that will
be like,
happen.
wait, I just heard
all
that
of us having our own personal
Julia,
nice
the spirit isn't following you. You're following the spirit.
Yeah, that just happened.
Welcome to Spirits Podcast, a boozy dive into mythology, legends, and folklore. Every week we pour a drink and learn about a new story from around the world. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Julia, and we are back with some hot, fresh, new urban legends that are coming to you live? No, not live. This is pre-recorded.
Coming to you fresh and edited so that you get only the best of us.
Only the best. I know our last Urban Legends episode was a little bit of a revisit, and I know that was a lot of people's favorite scary story. Several of you told us that it was your favorite scary story, so I'm happy we got to revisit. But now we get to get some hot, new, exclusive stories here for this hometowns.
Exactly.
Amanda, I have, to kind of get us started, one that came in hot, fresh, only an hour ago into our inbox.
Whoa!
This is from Harley, she, her, and she writes, "My room in the attic."
Okay.
Now, Amanda, I think there's two areas of a house that are the creepiest to have a bedroom in. One, basement. Second, attic.
Yeah.
Which would you prefer?
Oh, I'm going to have to go for the attic because I like having some windows. I like having a view on what's happening around me. And I'd rather be cornered in an attic than a basement.
Interesting. Yeah.
If it comes to it.
I think also footsteps overhead are creepier than like footsteps below you.
Definitely. And I've usually lived on the top floor of my apartment building, so that's definitely something I'm used to.
All right. So Harley says, "So a couple years ago, my dad decided that he wanted to sell our house and buy a new one that had great property, but the house was not in good shape. A part of the house had previously been burnt down. I couldn't find any information on that, but we were able to fix up the house and move in not long after buying it.
Nice.
We had decided that my room would be in the attic, and at the time I had no problem with that because it had loads of space. The only negative is that my parents wouldn't be installing a door as there was a stairway with a turn, so you couldn't really see into my room. But sometimes the light from our small nightlight in the bathroom would dimly light up the staircase."
That makes total sense to me. If you have like a little landing coming up and you're essentially on a whole floor, like half a floor of a house, I get it. Though as a teen, I probably would have really wanted a door for privacy and also so I can like slam it and then be like, "You don't live my life. You don't rule it.
You don't know me."
Yeah.
I think also you don't necessarily need a door because like if you're doing anything that you want privacy for, you probably can hear people coming up the stairs before they get there.
True. I'd probably do like a bead curtain or something.
Ooh, bead curtain. I like that. I'm into it.
Mm-hmm.
So a bit later, after we were officially moved in, my siblings started saying that they were seeing things around the house at night.
Oh.
I originally hadn't really believed them because they say things like that in a lot of houses that we've lived in.
Okay.
Have you considered that maybe your siblings are spooky bitches?
That's fair. That's fair. If so, power to you.
It wasn't until about a month before I moved out for college that I found myself fully believing them when I had my own experience.
Gasp.
It had been early in the morning, but still dark out when I woke up feeling like someone was watching me and my ears ringing. My room was completely dark, being the attic, and I couldn't see anything or anyone when I opened my eyes. But I was completely terrified, and I swear someone was looking at me. This continued for a minute or two before I told myself that I was just making it up. That was until my eyes had adjusted and I could see the dim light from the bathroom shining on my wall. And just then, I saw a figure move into the light and start walking downstairs.
Oh, shit.
I was so scared and finally reached for my phone and saw that the whole ordeal had happened exactly at 5 a.m.
Oh, no. We hate a round number. Oh, no.
We hate a specific number, you know? Maybe the ghosts don't know about daylight savings, so maybe it was the witching hour, you know?
Yeah.
Obviously, I didn't get any more sleep, and I made my way downstairs and asked all of my family if they had been in my room at all last night. And they all said no. And they had actually slept very well.
Great. I'm glad that my terror helped you have a great night of sleep.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm glad that the ghost put you all into a magical sleep just so it could haunt me. My dad had said that I probably just imagined it, or maybe it was something, as, quote, we don't know the history of this house, and he left it at that.
Dad? Dad, don't say that.
Not reassuring. Not reassuring at all, Dad.
I mean, that's very scary to hear.
I did not sleep well at all for the rest of that month in my room, but I had bought myself a little nightlight that I could keep on 24/7, and sometimes I would just fall asleep with a lamp on instead. My experience had kind of been written off by my family until a month or two later when my sister had invited a friend over to stay the night, and in the morning said that she would never stay over at our house ever again because she woke up at 5 a.m. feeling like the world was going to end. And when she looked up, she saw a man hanging from the ceiling.
Oh my God.
That's really bad.
I was going to say, like, harsh of your friend to say when waking up. I probably wouldn't wake up there. I would simply be awake, see that sight, and freaking leave.
Also, thinking about now, Harley, who wrote in this story, was in the attic. Yeah. I imagine then there was like a second story or a story below that. The other siblings were in the rooms.
No, Julia, not the man walking to his own death.
The man was walking to his own death, Amanda!
No, I'm sorry. Go to college, never come back. You simply can never sleep there again. I'm sorry.
The final line of the story also drives me crazy. We recently had to sell the house, but I don't think my parents told the new owners anything about our experience.
Oh, boy. Oh, baby.
Harley, I have some words for your parents.
Yeah. Feels like you're just propagating generational trauma. But listen, if your parents got to get the hell out, then let's get the hell out.
Anyways, love the podcast. I started by listening to Join the Party, but finally started listening to Spirits after listening to one of the VODs of the Rolling Bones tour.
Hey.
And I'm starting from the very beginning. I love the show, and you guys are doing a great job from the start, and I can't wait to see how it grows as I continue listening.
Oh, Harley. Thanks, Harley. Oh, by the time you catch up, congratulations on getting very close to the present.
There you go. Congrats. Amanda, what do you got next for us?
Julia, I have a fairly intriguing urban legend. This is not like exceptionally spooky, but I think it'll give us some really interesting topics of conversation. So let's start here.
Okay.
This is from Anouk, she, her, and it's titled, What Secret Did My Grandpa Take to the Grave?
Huh. All right.
Love that you are coming to us, a podcast, with this story and question, and we're going to do our best to figure it out.
We're going to figure it out. I believe in us. Even if it's not the truth, we can figure something out.
We'll tell you a story you can tell yourself in order to live, like Joan Didion said.
Mm-hmm.
Anouk begins with, Finally, it's my time to write in. I've been listening to your show for some years now, slowly working my way through your wonderful episodes, and I am now fully up to date.
Ooh.
Since I started listening, the Hometown Urban Legends episodes have been my favorite, and I couldn't wait to tell you my story. For some unknown reasons, I decided I was only allowed to write in once I caught up. So, finally, here we are.
I like that. Congrats on catching up.
Yeah, and this was from May 23rd. So welcome to, your third month of the present. The events of the story I'm about to tell took place in March 2021 and even made the local news.
Uh-oh.
What happened that year, you ask? 2021 is the year we had to sell the house that my grandparents built when they were married and lived in ever since.
Cute.
That is, only my grandma lived there in the end, as my grandpa had passed away 7 years before in 2014. Before I tell more, let's go back a bit in time.
Okay.
So my family is from the Netherlands, and both my grandparents grew up in small villages in the south of the country. These villages were very close to each other, so my grandparents met in the neighborhood on nights out, stuff like that.
Cute.
When they fell in love and decided to get married, they also built their first house, which in the end ended up being their forever home. This was in the mid-1950s.
I like that was just like a thing people used to do, you know? You're just like, you'd get together and you'd be like, well, we can't buy a house, we'll build a house.
At the time, the area where the house was built on was just meadows and farmlands, to your point, Julia. There had never been a building or anyone else living on that spot before my grandparents, which becomes important later.
Not that you know of.
Well, we'll see. As time passed, my grandparents had 3 kids, my mom, my uncle, and my aunt. And since they were living with 5 people in the house now instead of 2, my grandpa decided it was time to expand. Since he was a carpenter and could build practically everything himself, he decided to do the house expansion on his own.
Sure.
He expanded the house by offering a part of the garden and placed the kitchen in that new part of the house. The old kitchen became a sitting area and added to the living room, so all 5 of them had much more space to live and hang out.
Very cute.
Time jump. In 2014, when we got the sad news that my grandpa passed away, my grandma was left living alone in their home. Sadly, my grandma took it really hard. Her heart was broken when her husband died, and we know that a part of her joy left with him. 2021 was the year my family and grandma decided together that it was better for her to live elsewhere instead of living in the house by herself. So with pain in our hearts, we moved her into a retirement home. The house was sold to a young man around my age, 29 years old now, who logically decided to renovate and give the house a bit of a personal touch and a more modern look.
Sure, it was built in the 50s, probably not a lot of renovations since then besides the expansion. Understandable.
That's what brings us to the story.
Uh-oh.
A few weeks after the new owner started renovating the house, my uncle got a phone call from him. He told my uncle that he was renovating the kitchen, removing the entire floor and structure of that part of the house, and was surprised to come across some bones in the earth.
Huh? What?
They were embedded in the ground underneath the expanded part of the house, the part my grandpa built himself. Now, the new owner wasn't sure if the bones were human or belonged to an animal, so to make sure, he called my uncle to see if he knew if there was like a pet or something that had been buried there long ago.
Now, Amanda, do you know the archaeological way of telling whether something is... Actually, I don't know if it's human bone or animal bone, but you know how you tell if it's a rock or it's a bone?
No.
You lick it.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Why?
Because bone in general is like porous because it allows like air and liquid to pass through it. When you are trying to like determine whether or not bone is bone or rock, like in terms of archaeological, if your tongue sticks to it because it's porous, that's fossil bone.
Very glad that there were some enterprising archaeologists who said, I don't know, Jim, lick it, and then figured it out. But I'm going to just go ahead and say I will never do that and probably not disturb bones I find.
Understandably, you're not an archaeologist, Amanda, and you should probably call an expert in this case rather than the previous owner of your house to find out whether or not it's bone. But regardless,
that would be, I'm sure, a really fun call. And by fun, I mean at least an interesting day at work for someone at like my county planning commission's office to receive like, you know, a similar role that your husband has doing inspections where I call and say like, hey, quick question. If I do find bones of unknown origin in my ground, who should I call?
Ghostbusters.
Hey, 311? 311, who do I call? Who do I call about bones?
Who do I call about bones, though? You know, bones?
And they're like, ma'am, alternate side parking is not suspended today, but I don't know about the bones. I really can't help you. If there's an open fire hydrant, give me a call. Your mysterious bones, I'm going to have to refer you to somebody else.
I can tell you where you can and can't dig, but I can't tell you what happens if you find bones after you dig.
Sorry, ma'am. My job is power cables only. My uncle was surprised to get this call and said that, in fact, they never buried any animals on their property, and he had no idea who or what those bones could possibly have belonged to. Of course, my uncle asked everyone in our family if we had any idea about the bones. Again, fun call to get.
Quick text. Anyone know about anything about bones?
Including my grandma. None of us had any idea. So together, my uncle and the new owner decided to let the police know and have them investigate the bones.
The logical choice.
That is when the local news comes in, and my grandparents' old house did, in fact, make the local news.
Whew.
Now, for Anouk's privacy, I'm not going to link to the news article, but Julia, it is in fact...
Can you send it to me?
A news article. Yes, I'll send it to you. It is in Dutch, but Google Translate can get us there. So there sure are some bones pictured in this article.
Oh yeah, those sure are bones. Wow.
So Anouk continues, the article states that, quote, while renovating a house, the owner came across some bones, and the police are now investigating if the bones belong to a human or some animal. And now I'm sorry to tell you that after this phone call and after the local news article, we never heard anything about the bones again.
Why not?
The police never let us know, or the new owner, what they found out. This logically probably suggests that the bones were from cattle that maybe used to graze on that property before our grandparents bought the land, but it will always be a mystery to us.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Like, if they were human bones, they probably would have had to talk to the police a bit more, right?
I would have to assume that, yes, there would be like soil samples, right? Or like construction would be halted or something like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But the mystery here, Julia, the question that Anouk raises is, did my grandpa find the bones and knew they belonged to cattle and didn't really care to remove them? Or did he place them there himself for some reason? If he did, what did they belong to? Why was he hiding them? I can hardly imagine my grandpa playing a prank or obviously doing something nefarious because he was a very kind and loving person. But then again, you can never know someone 100%, can you? Unfortunately, we're not able to ask him about it. It is a secret that he took with him to his grave. So my question for you is, what are your theories about my story? Do you think my grandpa had anything to do with it? I would love to hear your thoughts. I'll also send you 2 pictures of my grandpa so you can see what he looks like. One is from when he's around 18 and very badass, if you ask me, and the other is from his wedding day.
Aww.
Thanks for your great stories and spread around the word. Keep up the good work. Lots of love, Anouk.
Okay, I have 2 theories. One's a creepy one, one's a normal non-conspiracy one. I'll start with the normal non-conspiracy one.
Great.
I think maybe when your grandpa was building the extension, maybe he didn't do a lot of like excavating. Like the story and the news article don't really imply like how deep this guy who's doing the renovations was digging. So it's very possible that like when your grandpa was doing his own renovations and doing the expansion, he simply didn't come across the bones.
Definitely possible. What's the other theory?
The other theory is animal sacrifice in order to make sure that the house would always be lucky and good.
See, my mind went automatically to prank, Julia. I thought to myself, there's the humdrum version where, if you're digging or leveling ground or doing whatever, like the last thing you want to do is expend labor doing something unnecessary. That's why there's lots of like meandering stone walls in fields or places where cattle graze. Because like, what are you going to do with them? Like make a pile? No, you're just going to like line them up in a rough wall and like leave it there. So I can imagine him coming across them being like, okay, and then like continuing to lay his flooring or whatever.
Yeah, that's very good. I also was thinking like because the kitchen renovation went into the garden, maybe like this was refuted later in the letter that was sent, but I would assume like maybe before your aunt and uncle and parent were born, maybe they had some sort of like pet that they buried in the garden after it passed away, like a cat or a dog or something. But then
definitely possible. They didn't say so.
Yeah, the grandma said that there wasn't any animals that they would have buried out there. So I don't know.
And I would also think that, in just the few years in between building the house and having all the kids, that they, you would know where the burial was and not build on top of it, I would guess, which is why, Julia, my theory is prank. I think he found the bones while excavating, and instead of chucking them out or putting them in the compost or whatever, said, you know what? I'll leave these in here for whoever comes next.
Amanda loves a prank as an explanation. Have you considered prank?
I think it's great. I think it's worth asking.
Amanda, this is not a prank. Do you want to quickly go grab a refill before we continue?
Let's do it.
Hey, this is Julia, and welcome to The Refill. Let's start, as always, by thanking our patrons. Thank you so much to our supporting producer-level patrons, Alicia, Ann, Ariana, Ginger Spursboy, Hannah, Jack Marie, Jane, Jeremiah, Nieselkins, Lily, Matthew, Captain Jonathan, Malachi Cosmos, Sarah, and Scott, and of course, our legend-level patrons. Audra, Bex, Chibi Yokai, Michael, Morgan H, Sarah, and BM Yup Scotty. And hey, if you want to sign up for our Patreon and get cool rewards like ad-free episodes, recipe cards for every single episode, both mocktails and cocktails, you can go to patreon.com/spiritspodcast. That's patreon.com/spiritspodcast. My recommendation for you this week is a new video game that I just started playing. So I haven't really gotten a ton into it yet, but I love nautical horror, and I also love playing or watching things that are like the opposite of the environment outside is. So right now it's really hot here. So I am playing Still Wakes the Deep, which is kind of like a survival horror game set in the North Sea. And it is spooky, it is atmospheric. And again, I love nautical horror. So this is really doing it for me. I still have a lot more playtime to go through, but right now I'm really enjoying Still Wakes the Deep. And hey, I think you would like the newest show here at the Multitude Collective, Wow If True. Wow If True is your one-stop internet culture shop explaining how what's happening online actually shapes the real world. They're the internet experts and real-life besties to unravel it. You have tech culture journalist Amanda Silberling and science fiction author / attorney Isabel J. Kim Esquire. More importantly, they are the only podcast that will mention Neopets and horizontal mergers in the same episode, which I think is true. I think if you searched every other podcast, you would not only get to hear about Neopets, but also horizontal mergers only on Wow If True. And they're asking and answering your burning questions about the internet, like who is Bigalus Dickalus? Why are Silicon Valley bros biohacking their mouths? Why are YouTubers locking people in grocery stores? And just how many secret babies does Elon Musk have? Elon Musk has so many secret babies, guys. So check out Wow If True wherever on the internet you find your podcasts, with new episodes every other Wednesday. This episode is sponsored by Marley Spoon. And here's the thing, I love cooking. It is one of the best ways for me to unwind at the end of a long day. But what really does not do it for me is having to go to the grocery store, having to take inventory at my house as to what I have and what I don't have, going to the grocery store, picking up all of the stuff, always forgetting at least one thing and having to go back to the grocery store. And I've tried a lot of meal kits out there, and Marley Spoon has by far been my favorite. So this podcast is sponsored by Marley Spoon, and Marley Spoon knows that bland food is boring, so they have created the best tasting meal kit that money can buy, and with our code SPIRITS, you can get up to 25 free meals. With Marley Spoon, you can choose from over 100 delicious recipes every week, from Cajun spiced chicken to poached salmon to butternut squash gnocchi, vegan burrito bowls. I'll tell you, I am not usually a salmon girly. I don't really love salmon, but they sent me that poached salmon and oh my goodness, I am going to start eating salmon all the time. It was so delicious. And many of the recipes are also completely customizable. So whether you're looking for vegetarian meals or family-friendly dishes or low-carb options, Marley Spoon has the food that you want to eat. And they even have an in-house registered dietitian who actually assesses every recipe. So it kind of takes the guesswork out of eating healthy. Like I said, I love cooking, and there is something that's really rewarding about cooking food for yourself and not just like going out to a restaurant and having someone prepare it for you. It like tastes better when you're the one preparing it. And I think that is always true 100% of the time. And that's what I like about Marley Spoon, because it takes the guesswork out of making the recipes, but also makes things super delicious. And with Marley Spoon, you aren't locked in long term. Marley Spoon's flexible subscription allows you to edit, pause, or cancel your boxes at any time. So experience the most personalized meal kit today with Marley Spoon. Head to marleyspoon.com/offer/spirits and use the code SPIRITS for up to 25 free meals. That's right, up to 25 free meals with Marley Spoon. One last time, that's marleyspoon.com/offer/spirits for up to 25 free meals. And make sure you use our promo code SPIRITS so they know that we sent you. And this episode is sponsored by United by Blue. United by Blue is a sustainable lifestyle brand that prioritizes sustainable materials and ethical manufacturing to lead the charge towards better business practices. For every product purchased, United by Blue removes 1 pound of trash from oceans and waterways. Get it? They're blue for the ocean. And they have removed over 3.5 million pounds of trash so far, from picking up the plastic bottles that litter our shorelines to cleaning up our own packaging and supply chains. They are on a mission to eliminate single-use plastic. From non-toxic regenerative fibers that keep harmful pesticides out of the environment to recycled fabrics that put existing trash to good use, they do their best to keep it clean from the very start. And their products are created to last. because the best way to be a conscious consumer is to ultimately consume less. They make this attainable by designing products that facilitate new ways to generate less waste, like take it with you meal kits and reusable coffee cups. I have one of their reusable coffee cups. It is great. I also have a very cool little mushroom hat that I got from them. It is one of my favorite hats that I own, and it's made out of trash. That's right. It is a hat that is made out of trash, and I love that. It's used recycled bottles, and it is so freaking cool. So go to unitedbyblue.com and use code SPIRITS to get 20% off your order. That is unitedbyblue.com and use code SPIRITS to get 20% off your order. And now let's get back to the show. All right, Amanda, we're back. And what have you been enjoying lately, cocktail and drink-wise?
We met a Join the Party listener named Nick, shout out Nick, who lives in our neighborhood and works at not one, but both of our cute local liquor stores. So I have been stopping by to say hi to Nick and try a few new kinds of drinks, including a really nice like lemony aperitivo type drink, which you can use in like martinis. I had it in sort of like a spritz. There was like a white wine with a little bit of the spirit and some tonic. So I've been going on the like low ABV, but like high refreshing spritz route.
Nice. That sounds really good.
It was really good.
I'm trying to think of like the cocktails that I've been enjoying lately. I have been like scaling down the amount of like stuff I drink outside of the home kind of thing. One of the ones that I've been really enjoying lately is at a local kind of like daiquiri and not tiki bar, but like they have a lot of tiki drinks there. I had a really good kind of classic painkiller the other day.
Ooh.
And if you haven't had a painkiller before, one of the like things that makes a painkiller a really good painkiller is the fact that they will freshly grate nutmeg over it. And I watched this bartender knock out like 3 in a row and just like nutmeg in the air, like wafting in my direction. I'm like, oh, this is the best.
A garnish, baby. It works. It works.
Garnish, baby. It does so much for you. And I hate every time I have a friend who's a bartender and he's like, some people are so weird about garnish where they're like, they'll see anything that has garnish on it and they're like, nah, that's like too fruity of a drink, too like
God.
Feminine of a drink. I'm like, what's feminine about mint? You know, what's feminine about nutmeg? Like,
it looks like a flower.
Down,
yeah,
dude.
I know. Toxic masculinity doesn't have a lot of logic for us here, Julia.
Yeah, toxic masculinity also will say like, oh, I don't want to order that drink because it comes in like a feminine shaped glass. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means.
I don't know.
Like, not a rocks glass? Come on. Come on.
That's fine. All the rest of us, queers and ladies and theys and gays, can have our, herbaceous, garnished, herbal and fruity drinks.
Yes. And I will. Bitch, I will.
Bitch, I will.
Now, Amanda, I have a story here from Mally, she, her, called Norwegian Folklore Phenomenon, Vardolger.
Ooh.
With accompanying stories.
Hell yeah.
Hello, my name is Mally. I am a longtime listener from Norway, and I finally got myself to sit down and write some of my stories down. I'm really procrastinating from studying for my cognitive neuroscience exam, but same difference.
I think you are working your brain by writing down these stories, which is the same as studying cognitive neuroscience.
I agree. Amanda, 100%.
I'm not a cognitive neuroscientist, but I am a podcaster, so do with that what you will.
So she continues, I wanted to share one of my favorite Norwegian folklore phenomenon that I think is really neat. In Norwegian folklore, there is a type of spirit called Vardolger, which is said to be a warning following spirit that attaches itself to a person and warns other people of that person's arrival by imitating the sounds of what is going to happen in a few minutes.
Oh, shit.
Sort of like a reverse deja vu. Instead of feeling like you have heard or seen something before, you are hearing or seeing something that will happen.
That is really cool and scary. And you know how much I love like a micro time jump or a micro time bubble, a spell that puts you ahead or behind by like 10 seconds or a minute. That's awesome.
Yeah. As someone who has deja vu a lot, I love this. This is so cool.
Cool.
The first story I have about this phenomenon is from my mom, along with other family members, and the second story is from a good friend of mine. I'll also attach a story at the end that is one of my own supernatural stories.
Ooh, hell yeah.
My mother has always been adamant that she doesn't believe in ghosts, spirits, or most things supernatural. She has always been a very pragmatic and logical-minded person and tends to find the logical explanations for all that happens, as is most of my family. Yet every time we talk about ghost stories, she tells me about the one time she has never been able to explain, the time she had a following spirit.
Ooh.
When my mom was in her 20s, she had an old car, a Volvo, if I remember correctly. According to my dad and my grandparents, this car had a very distinct sound, and they could always recognize it when she came driving up to the house. The story goes that often people she knew, notably her parents and my dad, would hear her car drive into the driveway, hear my mom get out and close the car doors, and then she just wouldn't come inside, prompting at least my dad and my grandparents to look outside to see nothing. Then about 5 to 10 minutes later, they would hear the car again, her car door slam, and she would come in then.
This is freaking me out, Julia. This is fucking me up.
My family and her friends all swear that this happened many times. It would always be about 5 to 10 minutes before she would actually arrive, and the sounds were identical.
Now, I put a lot of stock in that kind of thing. Like I can, again, maybe it was growing up in a small house with a lot of siblings, but like I can hear the sounds of like, you know, my husband walking down the hallway at work or like somebody coming up the stairs, you know, at home. Like it's one of the things you just get used to. Mm-hmm. And the like rhythms and just like that distinctive sound, it's like seeing someone out the window. Like it's practically the same in my mind. And if that happened where regularly I heard Eric coming home and then he did not open the door and come through the door, I would be so freaked out. I get why this is a phenomenon because this is so scary.
That's interesting, Amanda, because I think that's like you're expecting that thing to happen sort of thing. But this next line is going to throw you for a loop here, which is, even my staunch non-believer granddad is adamant that he would hear this and be like, oh, Astri is going to visit us in a few minutes on days when her visit was not planned. And like clockwork, my mom would arrive soon after.
Oh, damn. So it's like, oh, put the kettle on. She's about to be here because the false sound happened. She didn't come through the door. And then it was like, all right, well, she's going to be here in 10 minutes. So.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think it's different when it's like, oh, you know, like, for example, if I heard like Jake doing that and I'm like, well, Jake always arrives home between like, you know, 4 o'clock and 4:15. Yeah. So me hearing that, like, that's the expectation. It's part of our schedule. That's probably why I'm hearing that noise. But the fact that like the granddad can be like, oh, well, I just heard my daughter arrive. She's not actually here. And we didn't discuss her coming to visit, but I know that she's going to show up and then she shows up. That's wild.
Wild. Let me take out the cheese because she's certainly going to be here.
Well, it continues on that no one has ever been able to explain this as anything other than Vardøger, especially since it was not just a one-time thing. It only stopped once my mom got a new car. My mom's working theory is that the car had a Vardøger and it was not really her, or maybe her spirit just really liked imitating the sound of the Volvo.
Sure. I mean, they were just, you know, it was attached to the car, came with the car, follow me around, that goes where I go.
Maybe it just really likes Volvos. Who knows? Who can say?
I don't know.
Another example of the Vardøger is a friend of mine's story from when she was in high school. She's an only child, and she usually got home from school a few hours before her parents. One day she was upstairs in her room after school, and she heard her mother unlock the door, put the keys in the bowl, which made a distinct sound, and then her mother yelled, "Hi, how was school?" And my friend replied, "Good," and went back to what she was doing. Then, a few minutes later, she heard the exact same sounds as before. The door being unlocked, the keys in the bowl, and her mother yelling, "Hi, how was school?" My friend got freaked out and confused, so she went to check, and her mom was standing in the hallway with all of her clothes on from work. When my friend asked her mom if she was joking with her or if she had gone back in and out, her mom had looked at her all confused because she really had just come home from work at that moment, and no one had come home before her.
Stop, Julia. The keys in the bowl, saying hi, and then minutes later, a teen being like, "What are you doing, mom?" Like, oh, baby. Oh, that's scary. Oh, that's a lot.
You know what's wild too is I remember like an early Urban Legends episode where someone was talking about a doppelganger who basically did exactly this. And it's so cool that there is like a name for the phenomenon.
Yeah, and that it's sound only as well, because you could definitely be like, wait, I just heard that happen. And the implication that something is happening, your brain connects patterns and says, okay, great. It means that mom's home. It means that, my daughter is visiting. And then later, like I can just picture, and I'm feeling a little bit the stomach drop moment of like, wait, if that's not what that was, then what the hell was it?
And you're like, that just happened. Like just before. What's going on?
I also love that it's translated as following, right? The name?
Following spirit, yeah.
Because Julia, the spirit isn't following you. You're following the spirit.
You're following the spirit. Yeah.
You're the following.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
To add to the history and folklore of Vardøger, some legends say that everyone has some form of a following spirit like this. Sometimes it's an invisible creature or a doppelganger, and others say that the people who get the kind of warning spirit that Vardøger is must have a good soul.
Okay.
These Vardøger can also warn their person about dangers ahead or other things that just need a warning. Most of the time when the warning happens, it's auditory, but it also can be visual, with people seeing the person arrive, or a car, for example, before it happens for real. I just love the idea of all of us having our own personal nice spirit that just hangs out with us and sometimes warns other people of our arrival.
Incredible. I wish my Vardøger could like turn on the air conditioning before I get home.
That'd be nice.
I don't have a smart thermostat, so that would be really convenient. Thank you.
Please and thank you.
Please and thanks.
And then Mally finishes out with a creepy story from her own childhood.
Yes.
I also have a short creepy story from my own childhood. I must have been around 12 or 13 that I have never been able to explain with any type of logic. Me and my younger brother were, as most Norwegian kids are, latchkey kids, and we got home from school hours before our parents. At this point, it was pretty much 50-50 which of us got home from school first. We were also both very paranoid kids and terrified of burglars, which very illogically because we lived in a very safe town. So we usually locked the door as soon as we got inside. On this day, I came home and unlocked the door and walked in. For context, our front door and the kitchen/living room area is on the top floor, and me and my brother's bedrooms were in the basement, along with the basement living room where my brother usually hung out after school.
Oh my God, what a dream, Julia. Imagine having a basement living room of your own.
But we were just saying, would you prefer attic or basement living? And apparently they preferred basement living.
I love that this episode is taking us from the attic to the basement.
There we go. As I walked in, I yelled, "Anyone home?" And I quickly got a reply from the basement, "No."
Great.
Okay, cool. So my brother was downstairs. Then I could use the living room TV. I sat there watching TV for about 20 minutes. And then my brother came home. To this day, I've never been able to explain this, as the TVs were off, the radio was on a very low volume in the kitchen, but not even close to the stairs, and nothing was downstairs. I told my brother about what I heard and also asked if he was pranking me, but he was like 9 at the time and immediately looked scared as I told him, so I could rule that out. The terrified two of us walked around and checked the house with a huge knife from the kitchen, but nothing.
I probably don't recommend walking around with a knife. That feels like the kind of thing you could fall on versus like a baseball bat, a golf club, something like that.
Yeah, a blunt instrument as opposed to a sharp one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But excellent. Really booba over Kiki, Julia, is what I'm saying here for the preteens. But yeah, that's incredible.
The only thing that can explain in my mind is that there was a very nice and honest spirit that checked for me and replied honestly that nope, no one was home except for me. Maybe that was my own helpful spirit.
You know?
I hope these are fun to read, and thank you for keeping me company during my study breaks with your amazing podcast. Stay creepy, stay cool, and maybe say hi to your own accompanying spirit sometime. Best, Mally.
Mally, that was really good. And I'm glad I didn't know about this when I was actually in Norway, because I definitely would have been looking around the hotel room or like went to the bathroom, came back and been like, babe, it's really me this time. Like, I promise.
And Eric was like, what? What are you talking about?
Truly incredible. But yeah, I love the idea that the following spirit is making things a little easier, like doing a dry run, right? Like doing a test run, making sure everything's okay.
I agree. I really like the concept of this. I think it's really cool. And I feel like it does kind of like, I feel like I have memories of like thinking I hear my parents come up the stairs and then a few minutes later actually hearing them come up the stairs. You know what I mean? Like from childhood.
Definitely. It feels like a phenomenon that is probably present in lots of cultures in various ways. So I would love to know if any listeners have their version of the following spirit. Get in touch.
Yes. I want to hear about it. Now, Amanda, before we started recording, you teased that we had some cute animal stories, maybe?
I absolutely do, Julia. Let's end on a sweet note for this dog day of summer urban legend. This is titled More Aquarium Ghost Stories, and it's from Leo Hide.
Ooh, I'm trying. Oh, wait, this was the one where there was like a ghost shark, maybe?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Leo opens their letter by saying, "Hello, it's Leo again, coming in with more aquarium ghost stories and tales of some of my favorite inhabitants of wonders of wildlife."
Yay.
Wow.
I am saying wow. I know that's also the acronym, but wow.
First, let's go over some misconceptions about our animals and their tanks and habitats that are unfortunately in public view of what's quote-unquote good for them. I'll specify about this when it comes to one of our animal ambassadors, but here's a quick summary. First, most people assume that bigger is always better when it comes to habitats, but there are times when the case is in the minority. For instance, larger predators need a lot of space to roam, so like a male tiger in the wild has a territory of over 2 miles that it roams regularly. But smaller, quote, prey animals are much more comfortable in a smaller environment. A mouse in a field is a ton more vulnerable in a big open space than it is in its own burrow.
That makes sense. Like, imagine if you were a person in like a big area. I know a lot of people get anxiety about like big open fields and stuff like that. So sometimes it is nicer to just be in your cozy little burrow/house.
Exactly. And second, for the purpose of one of the stories here, I do want to say that animals don't typically live as long as humans do.
That is true.
Again, I feel like I probably would assume that, but we'll keep that in mind.
We really value animals that have very long lives. We're like, look how old turtles grow, or like those kind of parrots that can like be over 100 years old. But most animals have very short lives.
Let's get into the stories, Julia. So first, there is Snowball, an albino American alligator who is so chill that we get frequent questions as to whether or not she's real because she sits so still that she can look like a plastic toy.
Yeah. If you've seen an alligator in the wild, that's one of their specialties is they look like logs.
So I want you to picture a fairly tall fourth grader with a pixie cut and a huge smile walking into the lower level of the swamp at night, the section of the aquarium that Snowball lives in. Now, this fourth grader is going down the stairs to the lowest point. It's me. I was the fourth grader. The aquarium had just opened and I was ecstatic to see it. Now, imagine me as that little kid looking to the left at the flamingos and the greater egret, who was later removed for attacking the flamingos, by the way. Then looking to the left and seeing a reptilian face 3 times the size of my tiny hands staring at me with her giant pink unblinking eyes, and what I would definitely describe as a twisted but joyous smile. Her front 2 feet were climbing up against the glass as if she had been trying to scale it. Now, for whatever reason, I wanted desperately to be a creepy child, unaware that I absolutely was one already. But of course, we had then a staring contest, with my hands mirroring hers, though not touching the glass, because that's bad for animals. She won, and I kept on going through the aquarium.
I mean, her eyes are designed not to blink,
Exactly.
So that would make sense.
The black bear who lives with us is named after her favorite food. Julia, do you want to guess what her favorite food is?
Pumpkins.
It's Nilla wafers.
Oh my gosh.
So earlier in her life, Nilla was given a lot more of them than she gets now, as she is now mostly to a natural ingredient diet.
Probably for the best for her.
And then this next story involves an animal's death and a fairly in-depth explanation of that process. So if you feel like skipping to the end, go ahead.
This is a stone dog version of the story, just as a heads up for people who know what that means.
Yes, but bittersweet with a bit of a ghostly twist.
Good.
So WOW has had 3 giant Pacific octopi since its opening. Nyx, the biggest and, in my opinion, most beautiful. Caesar, affectionately known to the educators as Taco. And Octavia, who is really small because she is less than a year old. Nyx and Taco have both passed on, each about the age of 6, which is very old for an octopus, by the way.
Yeah.
A female octopus lays eggs only once, right before the end of her life. She goes into a sort of mania afterward, protecting her eggs with no regard for her own safety, hence the once. Typically, mother octopi are dead before their eggs hatch. But the odd thing is, male octopi also go into a mania, even though they don't have any contacts with the eggs after they're born.
Mm-hmm.
Scientists really don't have any idea why.
Amanda, I'm really excited about this because I did, while I couldn't sleep the other night, go into a deep dive about like how octopi, they fuck and then they die.
Yes.
All octopi fuck and then they die, which is wild to me. Like the fact that it's like you get one good lay and you're like, wow, that was great. I can die now.
I mean, I'm sure, again, how like a majority of creatures' lives on the planet go. But for us human beings and our complex mythologies, that is like so beyond the realm.
I know. It's great.
So since both Nyx and Taco actually died of old age, this happened to both of them. And even though this is probably not as evidenced as other stories I have, I like to think that Taco is still in the tank spiritually, protecting Octavia through his death.
Aww.
And finally, I want to introduce you to Izzy and Pam, our two permanent resident sea turtles. Izzy is the bigger one, and Pam is the one who's usually near the top and has a bit of a harder time swimming because she got here after a boat accident, and now there is some air that is embedded in her shell.
Aww.
She had her weights taken off as an experiment to see how she would do, and she's been doing very well at getting stronger as a swimmer.
Aww, little turtle rehab.
And then classic Leo Rose, they finish with, tell me if you want to hear anything else, like me having full conversations with people in my sleep, my peacock-infested summer camp, or the woods behind my grandpa's house.
I mean, if the peacock-infested summer camp also has some, like, camp legends or ghosts, I definitely want to hear about that.
Ideal.
Very sweet. I love animals.
So, Julia, I hope you enjoyed that sweet note of some animal friends to end off this urban legend.
It was so nice, Amanda. Thank you. I love animals so much. So to hear about them and their creepy little lives, it's the best.
And I guess next time you're considering fucking laying eggs and then immediately expiring, remember,
stay creepy.
Stay cool.